the biology of AIDS. And we had to have debates constantly. And the professor put me on the team of the anti-homosexuality group. One of the things that I came across, and I was astonished, the research that's out there that says that homosexuality is a biological thing. One of the biggest things that I hear quoted is the hypothalamus of the gay male is the same size as the hypothalamus of a heterosexual female. Okay, awesome, great research. Now let's take a step back. Who funded this research? A gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual group got the money to fund this research. Let's face it, this is America. We can pay someone money to get them to give us proof or research for what we want. Look at the studies and see who's behind these studies as to why these things are being said. People are looking for an excuse to excuse their bad actions. Step back, okay. A lot of Muslim youth are like, well, I've had this come up to me several times. I have feelings for someone who's of the same sex. Okay, maybe Allah creates us in a way that we have emotions. He has created us that way. However, it's what we do with those emotions, which goes to the dating thing, which goes to every other thing that we have in life. What do you do with those emotions? Did I act on them? No. Nobody's going to tell you you can't think the way that you think unless you're acting on it. Okay? You're not going to get counted against you if you're feeling something that might be wrong if you don't act on it. There's a lot of groups out there that are Muslim gay groups. If you don't believe me, Google it. And they say that they're born this way and that Allah forgives them. It is not true. That is not true. Don't let anyone tell you that. What we do and how we act on things is what determines whether we are sinning or not. Okay, so Lady Gaga, you got it wrong. You weren't born this way. No one was born this way. And those of you guys who can recite that song word for word, take a step back and listen to those lyrics and go, do I really agree with that as I'm singing along to it word for word? You do get counted for what comes out of your mouth, even though it's a song. I just wanted to put that little point there, for those of you who like her. But no, we were not born this way. Please, do not fall into that trap of people going, well, the research says. Look who's behind the research, and then come and tell me that. Okay? So inshallah, and don't make apologies for why we feel the way that we feel. No, we don't agree with that lifestyle, and take it to a very biological standpoint. How in the world can we have more children in this if it's women and women and men with men? And I grew up in Kentucky, and they say, God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. That's just the hillbilly. But it's very true. How is the world going to continue, and how is populations going to continue if we're condoning this kind of behavior? It is wrong from a very nature, biological standpoint. It doesn't work. So make no apologies when you make that explanation.
If I could add something. Something I did think about that I really do believe in, but I completely forgot to say, was that, Sister Rafa kind of reminded me of it, is that I do really believe that man and woman, the females in the room, you guys offer stuff and bring things to the table that us men, we will never bring to the table, and it's impossible. And so when you have a relationship of a man and a man, there is going to be huge things missed out on, on the development of a kid, whether they adopt a kid or whether, whatever happens. So Allah made it this way so that we bring things to the table and women bring things to the table. And I think that a lot of times the reason we are held back sometimes as a community, I'll use my own country as an example so I don't offend anybody, but like Pakistan. I'm from Pakistan. A lot of times the women, hey, stay home, cook, clean, do this and that. And although that's necessary too to facilitate the proper development of the child, you do need to remember that, if you're the man of the household, us men who are running the houses, we shouldn't be ruling with an iron fist that, hey, whatever I say is the way it's going to go and, you can just sit back. No, if they do things better than us, we need to let them do those things. And that's very important. And I think culturally, across the board, we fail at that a lot of times. So that's something that I think we should keep in mind.
Let me give a professional answer to this. What happened before when people had those feelings, their hypothalamus were the same. But once they develop in a homosexual relationship, their hormones are really bad messed up. I'm really giving you the latest research. So when someone comes to you and say, well, I made this way, no, you were not made that way. But once you get indulged, then your hormones are totally messed up. That's the one thing. The second very important thing is, Islam does tell you for two men not to be together under one blanket when they are not wearing anything. And the same thing applies, two women are not allowed to be under one blanket when they are not wearing anything. So maybe there's some instincts, who knows. Allah just asked not to act on those. And over and above, 25 years ago, this thing was considered mental illness in DSM, which is Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. Only in the last 25 years, because of pressure, it has been pulled out, and now it is considered normal. That doesn't mean that I will treat somebody with disrespect, but I'm letting everyone know it was a mental illness for hundreds of years, just been pulled off.
After this loaded question, let's go to the easy one. Is it okay to eat in the fast food restaurant? Brother Safran and Brother Hassan, one minute.
Okay, I have to be very short. Listen to it carefully. Let me be very straight on this. It is not haram, that's for sure. However, you have to understand one thing. We have been allowed to eat from the zabiha of Christians and Jews, but America is not a Christian country. It's a country where basically the church and the government, these are not together. So it does not fall in that category. Number two, the practice of stunning for beef and the practice of electrifying for chickens, that really kills a lot of animals. By religion, we have been clearly asked that if you find maita, which means dead, and the slaughter together, you have to throw that all away. So when you are not sure, I'm not going to say it's haram, but at the same time it's mashbooh, at least. And when you read the Rasul's order, it's clear. Anything which is, I'm giving you the meanings, anything which is doubtful, let it go. So I'm again not saying it's haram, but I cannot say it's halal either. And again, when people who are doing it, a lot of those people are not Christians, they are not Jews, they are atheists, holy atheists, both Hindus. So technically it does not fall in that category. But if your neighbor slaughters something, give it to you, yeah, sure, you can eat it.
How about slaughtered fish?
I know I don't look like it, but I eat everything. And, I mean, obviously I stay away from pork. Don't get excited, bro. But no, I mean, I think that I honestly think, although this is a very simple question, I honestly think Islam is a guideline to make you a better person. I really just don't believe in using Islam to overcomplicate our lives and make things difficult. And it's just, why? Like Allah said, stay away from pork, stay away from alcohol, eat everything else, but.
That's why Islam is great.
That's why Islam is great.
I just wanted to add one quick thing, just because I show this video to my students. If you're interested in seeing how food is processed and where food comes from A to Z, from the farm to your plate, watch the documentary Food Inc. It will give you a completely different perspective.
And then you'll stop eating.
You will.
That documentary cover the third world country. You don't know how the food is slaughtered in those countries. Very unhygienic conditions.
We all pay taxes here, and I believe around 1/5 of that amount goes towards helping and feeding hungry and needy. I'm sure many of these people receive the benefits, are Muslim too. Does that apply towards mandatory zakat or khairat? If not, why? Brother Sarfraz and Sister Wafa, 3 minutes each.
This first, also. I mean, I don't have the full religious answer. All I say when I read this question, and again, I don't know fully what the person is saying, but you have to pay your taxes. And then you also have to pay your zakat. You're living in America, we have a tax system. Look at the Prophet's time. Those who weren't Muslim had to do what? They paid a tax to the Muslims, and the Muslims offered them protection. It's the same exact thing that we do here. Now, that doesn't mean that in their churches they didn't pay tithe, and in their synagogues they didn't pay whatever their faith asked them to pay. So I really don't see this question as being one where we're saying, you know, yeah, it covers it, because I can't guarantee that my tax money really is going to go pay for the poor. I can guarantee that when I give my money to the masjid, inshallah, that money truly is going to the right place. And I know that I'm fulfilling that part of my worship, and I'm fulfilling that part of my deen by, for sure, giving my zakat. I know I did it. And paying my taxes, because I benefit from this country. I benefit from its protection. I benefit from the easy lifestyle. And that's all because I'm paying my taxes. And again, we won't go into taxes and how it can complicate your life, but to me when I read this question, it was, why? You have a religious duty, and you have a duty to your country too in that regard.
Let me be very straight with this. No, the taxes are not zakat. That's a rule of thumb. In Islam, the government is allowed to impose taxes on you and I. That's a rule of thumb. Second thing is zakat can only be spent in a certain way. There are only 8 ways you can spend zakat. There's none 9. You cannot go this way or that way. And it's the chapter 9, ayah 60, which you might like to read, where your zakat is going to go. However, please understand something. There have been some Allah's promises. Zakat is one of the 5 pillars. When you pay taxes, you ought to pay taxes whatever you get. And that is taken out whether you are rich, you are poor, you are filed bankruptcy, you have to pay taxes. Zakat is only when you have 355 days, which are lunar year, that has to pass before you give zakat. So that's the basic difference. It is what you have saved over a year. But when you pay zakat, and I can understand the pain in this question that we are basically paying zakat and we are paying taxes, and you guys are actually pulling us from all over. In zakat, there's Allah's promise. That is, it is going to come back to you. It's going to get multiplied, and you'll get much more than what you have. And you would understand that people start giving money, they start getting it back. If you have not tried, please try it now. Take $10, give it in the name of Allah, and wait for this to come back. So brothers and sisters, tax is different, zakat is different, but this is just like when you give zakat, that gets multiplied and that gets back to you. So even if you do not do it for eternal reason, what you're doing, you would get it back in this world.
And tax never come back. Actually, if we all get anything back, we'll all be rich, you know, with how much tax we're paying.
People of other faith usually ask that why Muslim men are allowed to marry 4 times. Our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ married 11 times. He married very young girl and very old one too. How can we give logical answer to the people of other faiths about our Prophet's marriages and his wife's ages? Sister Wafa and Brother Shakir, 5 minutes each.
I do get asked this type of question. They think, you know, especially when I go to like evangelical churches, they have these written and it's prescribed and the answer is simple. I mean, as a Muslim, I cannot be on the defense, for sure. I mean, when you talk about the number of wives, I tell them, go back to the Bible and find out, for example, you wrote in the Bible that Sulaiman alayhi salam had 1,000 wives. Now, who in the world, you know, I mean, I don't even comment. I say, Sulaiman had 1,000 wives in the Bible. And go and you'll find that in the Old Testament. And Dawood alayhi salam had 99. And then, you know, he was, you know, then, you know, I'm embarrassed to talk about actually the story when Dawood tried to steal another wife from his, and that's all in the Bible. And now you come to me to tell me why Islam allow. I tell them what it is that Islam came to put a limit on the number of wives. Because you allowed 1,000 and 100 and so on, it's unlimited. Islam does put a limit on that. And if you go to any culture, special idol worshippers, you'll find that they marry 10 and 20 and 30. So Islam came to put a capacity or a limit on it. For the Prophet ﷺ is a different story. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, his marriage was, as every part of his life, was for the sake of this religion. Any woman he married is because of Allah's prescription to him, because he wanted to teach us a rule of marriage. Like for example, when he married Salama, she was 62. Who would marry a woman that is 62? just for the case of, of what you're thinking about. It was a ruling that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to teach the believers. And there was maybe something that you don't know, that the Prophet was not allowed to divorce his wife. While all the Sahaba could marry and divorce and marry again, and marry as long as they keep 4, the Prophet was limited to 11. And none of the wives he married were, they were married before except Aisha. So, to give these indication about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, going back to the Bible of that 1,000 wives that were just trying to do their best to please Sulaiman so he would go have dinner with them. And these are stories in the Bible. So, really, once I say this, no, but, they will not even comment on what I say, because, clearly, you're telling me that, look what you have. Jazakallah.
Brother Shakir did a great job addressing that. I just wanted to address the one about the very young girl. A lot of people, because unfortunately there's a lot of literature out there that defames the Prophet ﷺ. And astaghfirullah, they say some very horrible things. It's up to us to get in that knowledge as to what the situation was. And they say, well, he married a child. Isn't that, inappropriate? Isn't that this? Does that make him a pedophile? Astaghfirullah. These things are being said. It's up to us to educate ourselves to know that he did. Yes, he married her, but he never approached her until it was the right time. And she was a woman. And that was a very loving relationship, subhanAllah. But it's up to us to make that clarifying statement and to show how beautiful he was as a husband and how he treated his wives. It's up to us to educate ourselves on those things.
And by the way, people who say that about Prophet Muhammad, they try to put, picture him as, a womanizer.
Yeah.
But remember, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ married when he was 25, and never before that had any dating, or despite the fact that the society around him was practicing all kind of bad stuff, he never practiced any bad stuff. And at that time he married Khadija, who was 15 years older than him, just because she was good, respected woman, not because, she was young and he wanted to marry her for that reason. And he stayed with her until she died. He was only with one woman. And after that, after she died, when he started marrying the others, and the majority of those women were very respected, and were also older women. He did not marry them for the reason that they say he married them for.
Next question is pretty loaded. I'm only going to allow Dr. Rami to answer that question, and he has 10 minutes. Question is, I've heard that Maria al-Qibtiyya was not Prophet's wife, but he used to have a relationship with her. In some places, it is also written that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ married Maria and had a son named Ibrahim. If he did not marry her, isn't this relationship haram?
First, let me talk about slavery. Slavery was rampant before Islam. People would attack each other, take everybody slave, and if you take like 10, 20 women as slave, you will have a relationship with all of them, no limit, no nothing. Islam came and allowed slavery only in one condition, as retaliation if your enemy is doing that to you. So if your enemy attacks you and takes you as a slave, then when you attack them, you take them as a slave. So you use it as a deterrent. If you do something to me, I will do it to you. So be careful, don't attack me. Okay? So that's the only situation where slavery was allowed. On the top of that, Islam regulated slavery. You cannot have a relationship with your slave. If you have a relationship with your slave, nobody else is allowed. And if she becomes pregnant and she delivers, then she is free immediately. She becomes free immediately. She and her son. And you cannot harm your slaves, you cannot overburden them. And not only that, freeing slave was very encouraged. And it became like, if you do a mistake, you want to please Allah, you free your slave. If you make a yameen and you can't fulfill it, you free your slave. If you do this, you free your slave. So slaves were being freed right and left, And Islam eventually, was the major force behind, that slavery ended. So where did Maria come from? Rasulullah ﷺ was sending letters to all those kings, inviting them to Islam. He sent a letter to the king of Egypt. He was Coptic. And the king of Egypt liked the letter of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He knew he is a prophet. So he did not have the power to kind of change his kingdom into Islamic kingdom, but he sent a nice gift to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And he sent him a slave called Maria. Okay? Rasulullah ﷺ invited her to Islam, and she accepted Islam. Okay? And Rasulullah ﷺ then, she is now his own slave. Now there are two narrations to what happened. The first narration is that Rasulullah ﷺ freed her, and he told her, your dowry, your mahr, is your freedom. And then he married her, she became his wife, and then he had Ibrahim from her. There's no haram relationship at all. The second narration is, she was his slave, and he had a relationship with her as a slave. Okay, and as we said, this was allowed. مَا مَلَكَتْ يَمِينُكَ. And nobody else can have a relationship with that woman anymore. And then if she becomes pregnant, and if she would have a baby, then she is freed right away. And when she became pregnant, and when she had Ibrahim, she became free. And she became one of the mothers of Mu'mineen, Ummahat al-Mu'mineen. And that's why we call it al-Mu'mineen Maria. And we go back to why the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was marrying this woman or that woman. Do you know that by marrying Maria, Rasulullah ﷺ immediately established a relationship with the people of Egypt? When Rasulullah ﷺ sent his army to Egypt, when the Sahaba sent their army to Egypt to conquer Egypt afterward, they said, treat them with extreme respect. Those are the relatives of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And and the people, the Christians in Egypt at that time, the Coptic, saw this army coming from a person that when they sent him a slave, he freed her and he made her his wife. So they looked at that army as not like an enemy who's coming to attack them. They looked at the army as a relative, and that's why the army had very little fight in Egypt. And the people of Egypt converted to Islam with a very small army that the Prophet Muhammad, Umar al-Khattab sent under the leadership of Amr ibn al-As. Rasulullah ﷺ also used the same way when he, there is a ghazwa when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ went to one of the, I forgot the name, I think Dhatul Riqa', he went to those people. And one of the people that they captured is the daughter of the leader of that tribe. And the Prophet, after they distributed the slaves, the daughter of the leader of that tribe was given to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ freed her and married her. You know what Sahaba did? Sahaba say, oh, by Allah, we will not keep the in-laws of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as our slaves. And they freed the rest of the people of that tribe. What happened to that tribe? They all converted to Islam. When Prophet Muhammad ﷺ also went against one of the Jewish tribe, and Huyay ibn Akhtab was one of the worst enemies to Muslims. And he went there, and he married his daughter. After he conquered that city, he married his daughter, Safiya. What happened? Immediately, after that war, the situation was very calm. And people had, converted to Islam. And they felt that, there is now, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is our relative, is not our enemy. So there is a reason for the marriage of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in most situations. But I go back to the same point. Rasulullah ﷺ did not have a haram relationship with Maria. And he did not, attack an area and captured Maria and had a relationship with her. It was a gift as a slave, and he married her the proper way, and he freed her after she converted to Islam, and she is one of the respected mother of mu'mineen. As we know, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is always attacked on this issue, his marriages. But as we said, he married all those marriages after he was old, and they were all for a reason. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was never a womanizer. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was not, a sexual predator. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was an example, as sister said, example of the best husband to all of them. So that is the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And I'm glad you guys asked that question. I'm glad that you given extra time, because the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is the best example to all of us how we treat our women. If any of us is treating his woman badly, go back and see how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was treating his woman. In fact, how can we say a bad thing about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ? Somebody who has 11 wives, do you think this person can hide anything bad about himself? Imagine if your wife is allowed to talk about you, and all the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ wives were allowed to talk about him. If your wife is allowed to talk about you, she can expose all of your bad things. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has 11 wives, and all of them were describing his actions during the day and during the night. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ could not hide anything bad about himself. Yet, all the talk that was talked about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was so beautiful, because he is beautiful, because he is a good person. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad.
But,
And I'm yelling.
why should because he's excited. But the thing is, why should he be in the defense when, for the Christian and Jewish theology, because many times I'm challenged with these questions, as I said, they're prescribed. But, like Sulaiman, you say the Bible is not corrupted and this is the word of God, and you say Sulaiman has 1,000 wives, really? 1,000, and then you go into the detailed description of 700 of that time, and they all eat lunch with him, and everyone cooking something good. So there is really nothing to be defensive about. When they come to me, I'm never defensive, about anything. Don't feel like you have to defend the Prophet ﷺ. Yes, for the Christian and the Jews, all the prophets are sinful. One woman told me something crazy. She told me Prophet Dawood said that he was sinful before he was even born. I was like, really? Sinful before he was born? What did he do before he was born? So there's, really, this is crazy. And she think I was like, gonna be so excited about this fact that she's trying to teach me that, Dawood, but that's the way they looked at their prophets. Sulaiman was married to 1,000 and he dealt with the shayateen, and Dawood was married to 99, but he wasn't happy, he had to steal another wife. And Prophet, I don't know what he did, but Prophet Muhammad, we cannot be like them. We cannot describe any of our prophets as sinful the way they like us to do so. And we will not, we refuse to accept any of these indications that they try to lead us to, and we will never be on a defense at all.
I know it's 8 o'clock, but like I said before, we'll be pushing Isha to 8:30 or some. We still have several questions. Pizza won't be here before 8:30. Quran allows a man to beat his wife and also says to love and take care of wife. Islam is a religion of love and peace. Why Quran has allowed beating wife? Sister Wafa and Brother Shakir, 3 minutes each.
You see these questions, these are all intelligent, but that's exactly, as I'm telling you, the prescribed question that our kids are bombarded with continuously. As a matter of fact, Maria, I'm talking about, I don't even know the details of this. Look, the little details, it's already studied, and there is a course, that my friend, one of the pastors, he told me, there is a course they teach their kids about Islam and how to attack Islam. And they go to all these books written about points of attack, and they actually tell their, the people who attend this class, and one day I had the lucky time of being the target of questions, and all of these questions, were part of it. So what is the question now? All right, about Quran, and about the Prophet ﷺ was the best example, as Brother Rami and all the panel we talked about, the best example of dealing with his wife. Like the Prophet ﷺ was the best of example. As he said, خيركم خيركم لأهلي وأنا خيركم لأهلي. The best among you are the best example, are the best to his wife, and I'm the best to my wife. I'm the best to my spouse.